hello YouTube. I'm going to tell the story of the life and death of Ellison Cottontop Mounts-Hatfield, who was hanged 130 years ago today at 12:37 p.m. on February 18th, 1890, for his part in the Hatfield McCoy Feud. Except we're going to do it a little bit differently, of course. We're going to do it the Hillbilly Files way. Not the passed down, accepted version, but we're going to tell you the story that Heather and I have put together through research, along with eyewitness accounts from those times and newspapers during the time period. We will be looking into the family he was born into, his wife, and possibly an unknown daughter, a lost line. We will also be looking at newspapers from that time, which are highly unreliable because, to be honest, for some, the goal was and is, to this day, to make money from trumped up stories and exaggerations. You know, just like I said, just like it is today. That being said, there are times that a grain of truth or a tiny detail seems to just kind of pull all of the little pieces together. And this is definitely one time that newspapers helped paint a completed picture. Now, first, before I go any further, I want to go ahead and say right now, up front, no human, no one knows 100% the truth in this story. I don't care what they claim. No one can say that he thought this or he thought that, or exactly what he did on the night of the murders of Alifair and Calvin McCoy. But we can give you some details about what we found, and you can decide for yourself which way you lean. So we all know this story ends with Cottontop's death at age 25 on the hangman's gallows. But where did this story begin? Well, that's one reason I'm at this cemetery today. Ellison Mounts was known by everyone as Cottontop because of his white hair. He was born on a summer day in August 1864. As usual, once you start looking into these old stories, dates and names can become a little bit gray sometimes. So you just have to realize that records back then were, on occasion, they were off on some of the details. Names were misspelled, dates were given wrong or written wrong. You know, anytime there are humans, there are going to be errors. But this is where you use common sense, really, or take it with that grain of salt that I mentioned a minute ago. Now we're going to be heading right up here in just a second. There is a grave, well, there's several graves up here that are related to this story. This is the Ellison Hatfield Cemetery, just outside of Williamson West Virginia. That's Mate Creek, going right up through there. Y'all like that little bridge? Wild looking little critter, isn't it? I was kind of leery about taking the car across it, but I saw tire tracks. Somebody else did it. They did it. I guess I can do it. So, I guess, as usual, there's only one thing standing in between me and telling you this story. The mountain that Leo has to climb. Have y'all noticed this? Seems like 90% of the stories, there is somewhere along the line, there's a mountain that Leo has to climb. At least this one has steps most of the way. So I guess I'm gonna go climb me a mountain, y'all. So we'll see you guys up top. See y'all just in a second. Okay, now this is the upper section, and I'm parked way down the hill there by the road. And this is the upper section of the graveyard. Now, why are we here? Well, we're here for that. We're here for that. But mostly we're here for that. Right there. You see, we know that Ellison, well, Cottontop's mother is definitely Harriet Hatfield, the daughter of John Hatfield and Isabel Vance Hatfield Grimmett, who went by Tabby. So, looking at this name, something sticks out, of course, right? The name Vance kind of stands out, does it not? Okay, you with me so far, right? Okay, now, hang on. Here we go. Now, Vance is the maiden name of Cottontop's father's mother as well, okay? Cottontop is, of course, the illegitimate son of Ellison Hatfield. We'll call him Ellison Sr. He is the brother of the Hatfield McCoy Feud patriarch, Devil Anse Hatfield. His mother is Nancy Vance. I'll try not to confuse you here, but I'll be honest, it's not easy. I'll put it like this. There were some first cousins getting married and, reproducing here. Not once, but twice in a row. Cottontop's mother, Harriet, was also the first cousin of Cottontop's father, Ellison Hatfield. It is found that Harriet's birth date on her find-a-grave does not match census records or paperwork in several other areas, which makes us believe that the find-a-grave listing is wrong again. It has her as being born in 1838, but in reality it has to be more around the mid-40s, maybe, give or take, because on the census in 1870 she's 23 and Ellison is 6. She and her husband, David Mounts, are living with the Gibson family. Ellison was given David's last name and became a Mounts. But even without being related to Ellison Sr. here, he's still a Hatfield by blood through Harriet. With Ellison Sr., he's actually a double Hatfield. So we really wanted to visit Cottontop's mother, Harriet, and we had it all planned out. But we found out last minute that a coal company owns the land now and has the ground gated. They have a gate up. And we've actually gotten several lost lives requests for that cemetery from you guys, our viewers. And we're told that they will open the gate for grave visitation. So I guess we'll have to see on that one, right? Anyway, Harriet married David Mounts in 1870, and according to the 1900 census. And keep in mind, this is information that Harriet and David told the census themselves. Ellison Sr. married in 1865 to his wife, Sarah Staten. Sarah and Ellison Sr. had a child named Elliot, which are eerily similar names. Let me get down here. I'm going to relax a little bit, sit down here a little bit, which are eerily similar names, like I said. And he was born the same year as Cottontop, according to one census in 1870, which also shows him being 6 years old at the time. But Find a Grave has him being born in 1866, 2 years after Cottontop was born. So, let's move 10 more years into the future. Cottontop is now 16. He lives at home with his mom, David, and 5 siblings ranging from 3 to 11 years old, with him being the oldest at 16. It shows him as single and as a farmer. So he helped out on the homestead full time, is pretty much what that means. It was pretty common for the day. It also shows that he cannot read or write. So we know he didn't go to school. The next information we find is a couple years later, when he's 19. On December 25th, 1883, there is a marriage certificate filed to Ellison Hatfield and Rebecca Justice. It shows her as being 17 years older at 36. And here's Cottontop would be hanged a short 7 years later. So there is no 1990 census for him. We did, however, find a Rebecca Justice in that area at the proper age in the 1880 census, listed as a servant. We also stumbled across this grave looking for Harriet, his mother, and found it to be very curious. It's claiming to be a possible out-of-wedlock child of Cottontop's, born in 1888, with a girl named Clara New, and named after his mother, Harriet. But some of the information just doesn't stack up completely. But if it's true, a lot of people are running around right now with Cottontop's blood in their veins and don't even know it. But I guess that's a story for another day, right? This one here is full enough. So Cottontop's dad is presumed to be Ellison Hatfield, who I'm here visiting today. He was involved in a brawl with 3 of Randall McCoy's sons at an election day event not far from here. He was stabbed over 25 times and then shot. He died a couple days later on September 9th in 1882, that around the same year that Cottontop got married, and 7 years before he would be hanged. Ellison Sr.'s death led to the pawpaw tree incident, where the 3 sons were gathered up and eventually tied to trees and gunned down in revenge for Ellison Sr.'s death. Several years later, in 1888, Cottontop would then be involved in an attack on the McCoy cabin with other Hatfields and several friends, which led to the death of 2 more of Randall McCoy's children and a violent assault on Randall's aging wife that she never recovered from, dying a long time before Randall did. Ellison's parents are also buried here. Nancy Vance, of course, and Ephraim, who they call Big F. Some people call him Big Eth, some people call him Big F. If his real name is Ephraim, I'm thinking it's F. But anyway, that's irrelevant. But this cemetery right here is actually full of interesting characters and lost burials that we're just now beginning to actually discover. Now that these days get up. Yeah, my pant leg's getting wet from the ground. But there's just all sorts of different things that are coming to light these days with the advent of computers and everything being stored digitally. You can look up a lot of stuff. You can do a lot of things. And so we're very much looking forward to coming up here and digging into some more of these stories and see what we can find. There's Ephraim and Nancy Vance and some of my mother's family, some Blairs. Mom was a Blair, and there are some Blairs right up there. So some of my immediate family are what? Well, 50 yards, 75 yards away from the historic grave. Beginning, I wanted to bring you guys up here. This is the logical spot to begin our story. And like I said, there is going to be some stuff in this video that some people will consider to be controversial, and that is just fine with me. Alright guys, I guess I'm going to get out of here. Still got a long way to go. All that good stuff, and we will see you for the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say. See you guys in, well, from your perspective, right about now. Okay, now this, as you can see, is the Pike County Courthouse and Jail. This is in Pikeville in Pike County, Kentucky, and that is the old part of the old courthouse. There's been some new added on to it, but if you come over here, you can tell. You can look at the building and you can tell the pre-Civil War sections from the newer sections. And I was just over here on my way in speaking to a couple guys with the sheriff's department and asking questions and stuff like that, and they gave me a whole bunch of information. The old courthouse is still there, as a matter of fact, and you can go in there, so we're going to go in there in just in a minute. But anyhow, back to our story. Ellison Cottontop Mounts, a 25-year-old who took part in the raid of the McCoy home in 1888, was found guilty of the murder of Alifair McCoy, most likely believing at worst that he would be sentenced to life in prison, according to some feud historians. But the jury quickly found Mounts guilty and sentenced him to death by hanging. Mounts immediately attempted to change his plea to not guilty and requested a new trial, but the request was denied, and Mounts was hanged on February 18th, 1890, here in Pikeville. Rumor is he declared, "The Hatfields made me do it." And some historians believe that Mounts was a scapegoat for the whole McCoy clan, though he was said to have done it just as well by the other people at the New Year's Day massacre. The Pike County Sheriff's Office carried out the sentence, publicly ending the feud via county and state legal mechanisms. During the hanging, the first in Pike County in 4 decades, drew thousands of spectators, many of who anticipated a rescue attempt by the Hatfield clan. Cottontop also hoped to see the Hatfields ride into town to challenge the law, but his hopes were in vain. Other rumors surrounding that day include Bad Frank Phillips, drunk as a skunk that day and hollering about his part in taking the Hatfields down. This photo, for example, is from a church revival, according to historians, not Cottontop's hanging. Though some would love to believe that's the case, though I didn't take the picture, so I can't say who it is personally, but I tend to think it's a little too good to be true, considering the lack of pictures from that day, and to capture the exact second and to see the McCoys sitting front and center looking distraught. It just seems a little bit, like I said, too good to be true. Now I'm going to head in here just in a second, and from my understanding, you can go in there and they will let you look around. They'll let you look at the old courthouse, and it's been changed some since then. The old courthouse, from my understanding, has been, the sheriff's guys over there were telling me that the old courthouse has been split. Some of it is still the old courthouse, and some of it, I think he said, was legal offices of some sort. But I'm gonna head on in and we'll see what we can see, guys. See you inside. Guys, you're not gonna believe this. I have got chills right now. I really do. I've got chills up my back right now. I am sitting in the exact courtroom that Cottontop was tried in and found guilty and sentenced to death. I'm sitting in the defendant's chair. This is where Cottontop would have sat. Now the courtroom has been modified a little bit over the years, obviously. It's been updated. New seats and new pretty much everything. But you can tell the old courthouse underneath. Capacity 240. Wow. Can you just imagine people standing here? Standing here, giving testimony in the Hatfield McCoy Cottontop murder trial. That is wild. It's a beautiful old courtroom. I asked about coming down here. Sure, certainly, yeah, go right ahead, no problem. And I came down and the lights were all off. And y'all know, anybody has a GoPro knows they're great in good light, but they're terrible in the dark. So I went back and asked and told them, you know, who we were, what we were doing, you know, that sort of thing. And asked if there was any way, if they could turn the lights on for just a minute, for just long enough for me to record this for all of you. They said yes. They came in, turned all the lights on, showed me where they were, and said, turn the lights out when you're done. How cool is that? But look at the artwork on these walls. Look at that. That is absolutely beautiful. And to think this building, like the sheriff's office, you know, the guys outside were telling me, this is pre-Civil War, guys. This is amazing. To just roam around unabated, unhindered in any way in the very courtroom where everything happened, and bringing it to you guys. You know, y'all know how we are. We don't just go to the places. We bring you guys along and we try to show you the places, including the defendant's chair, especially the defendant's chair. But can you imagine the prosecution? The prosecution sitting here, Cottontop and the defense sitting there, the judge, the room completely filled to capacity with people here waiting, hoping that something interesting, something wild would happen, but it never did. Amazing, isn't it? History, real, live history, laid out right in front of your face, right in the center of your camera. Well, center of your screen, center of my camera. You know, like I said, what we do now 10 years ago would have taken an entire production staff to do. But with YouTube's platform and you guys behind us, you guys supporting us, need I say more? Here it is. All right, we've got to move on. We've still got more sites to go to, more things to see. Now, just how amazing was that to actually stand in the very spot, in the exact spot where this stuff happened. I'll just leave that there for 1 second. Y'all can pause if you want to and read the sign. The other side says the same thing. I'll just leave that there for a second. Okay, so Cottontop was loaded on a carriage right down here. It is said that he was sitting on top of his own coffin as he slowly made his way to where his life would soon end. And I will take that very same ride now, years later to the day, in a car named after a horse instead of a horse pulling me. Anyway, thousands of people came from all over, by foot, by horse, by carriage. They brought the entire family with them, including kids, picnic lunches, moonshine, and blankets to get as comfortable as they possibly could while they waited for the big event to unfold. I'm going to go down here and get in my car, and we're going to retrace the route that Cottontop took from this courthouse to be executed. And there's the courthouse. So he would have came right straight up this way. Now imagine sitting on top of your own coffin heading to your execution. Kind of eye-opening, isn't it? Hopefully I'll beeline it and I won't miss my turn. The turn's up here on the left, and I have missed it once or twice, so just saying. But this is the old Pikeville College right down here, and the Pikeville City Cemetery. That's Octavia Hatcher right there, looking down on the city. Done stories about her. There's several legends. The legend of Octavia. That's not what we're doing today, though, is it? We're going down to the valley. Little valley turns off to the left, right down here. Nope, that's not it. There it is. I have sailed right by this before. Eventually, the carriage with Cottontop came creaking up this little hill right here toward this very spot and was met with excitement, all except for Cottontop's family that was there, which, according to newspapers, was his mother and uncles, and we assume it was her brothers, one being Floyd Hatfield from the famous hog trial, which some claim started the feud, though it really didn't, but it certainly didn't help the situation very much. Cottontop has been reported as possibly having a mental disorder of some kind, though we haven't found any proof of that for ourselves. Besides being possibly hot-tempered and impulsive, maybe below average intelligence, as some papers at the time called him a half-wit at the time in articles. But reading court documents, he seemed to talk in a way that appears totally normal compared to others from the time period, you know, the same terms and so on. Reports stated that days before his hanging, he was upset and refused to eat and was extremely troubled, which is very different from more widespread accounts of him being passive and had no clue what was happening to him at all. Virtually, basically a simpleton. Anyone who tries to do a mental evaluation on a man in 1890, well, I'm going to say that's pretty much guessing at this point now, isn't it? But we honestly, we just don't know enough about him to say. And even if we did, is what they accused him of, is that the same as what we would just simply call a slow learner or a mental disorder or just simply ADHD? You know, we'll never know. We'll never know the truth. But I've got one more little spot. You see that little spot right up there? That's where we're headed to, right there. So I'll be right back. Be right with you. Okay, now this is the old Pikeville Cemetery that I just showed you from down there beside that brick building. The sign is right beside of it in that little grassy area, and this part of the cemetery would have been in plain view of the scaffolding. That's important because it is said by one of the reporters that his grave was within sight of where he was hanged. This is a direct line of sight. You can see the sign right there. This is the only graveyard. Anyway, one newspaper article the day after his hanging says that he was cool till the last minute and a black hood was put over his head, and then he declared, "The Hatfields made me do it," before being hanged at 12:37 p.m. He was hung in this very valley with this cemetery overlooking it. A small board fence was built around the scaffold to prevent people from stopping the execution, and everyone was armed and waiting for Hatfields to come rescue Cottontop, or a riot to explode at any second. But it didn't. Another article says his body was then released to his mother and uncles and buried within eyeshot of where he was hanged, which is this spot. To be clear, and there has been some speculation about this, to be clear, I'm going to say that twice, he is not buried at Dill Cemetery like his find-a-grave says he is. Randall McCoy is buried there though, and a Cottontop is accused of killing his daughter Alifair. John Dills owned that cemetery, and was a very good friend of Randall's and his neighbor. I can assure you, he did not allow Cottontop Mounts to be buried there after being hung for killing Ellison McCoy. He is here. Somewhere in this cemetery lies the lost grave of Ellison Cottontop Mounts. So, this ends the story of Cottontop Mounts and his life on this earth. And where he is now, only he and God know for sure. But I can tell you, his earthly vessel, his body, is not at Dill Cemetery. It is very fitting, in my opinion, that we end our video here, because if we're correct and our research and the actual evidence that we found is to be believed, the lost grave of Ellison Cottontop Mounts is somewhere on your screen right now. Imagine that. Wild, isn't it? Great story, great place. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed our little story today. It took a lot of work to bring this one to you guys. It really did. It took a lot of work, matter of fact, and a lot of miles. And we appreciate you guys. Like I told you earlier, we couldn't do it without you guys. So we appreciate you guys for supporting us. And one thing I do want to mention before we head out, before I close the video out, I don't know if some of you have seen, other YouTubers have mentioned it, and we have had a few people contact us as well about it, about our subscribers. Apparently, somehow, somewhere or another, subscribers are falling off. So just take a look up top and make sure that you're subscribed so that you'll see our future videos when they come out. And we thank you guys for your continued support. Thank you very much. From Pikeville, Kentucky, with little flowers coming up already. I just noticed that. From Pikeville, Kentucky, and from the lost and unknown grave, 99.9% is what we'll go. We'll leave a little bit just in case. 99.9% from the grave of Ellison Cottontop Mounts. This is Leo with the Hillbilly Files. Hillbillies out.